Too often, the topic of race and oppression are centered around those who do not look like me. And yet, we are the topic up for debate. Our identities are dissected into digestible pieces for others to consume, to see if we settle well enough in their stomachs for them to want more. This nation was built on the backs of those who were never seen as fully human. Oppression and resistance exist in tandem. It is 2016, and there is a national conversation happening around race. Ferguson and the access to social media electrified the conversation on the realities for Black people. People heard Black Lives Matter as a call to action. Community members are stopping traffic on the freeways demanding justice. Athletes are wearing "I can't breathe" shirts and urging one another to no longer be silent. Where a little over 20 years ago, Michael Jordan accepted advice to not speak out against racial justice issues for fear of advertisers leaving him. Now, those very same advertisers who created Just Do It have recently put Black Lives Matter as their website's front page. Musicians are speaking out in their mediums. And acceptance speeches, like that of Jesse Williams, are critically challenging those who are in power and status to act. As I prepared this speech, I heard teenagers on the sidewalk talking about race. It is important that people are waking up to the injustices that have plagued this nation, because the violence is real and the oppression continues. The conversation on oppression is not enough. Necessary, deeply necessary, and not enough. And I am in conflict because I know that the oppression is real. As I speak these words, Black people are being killed. We are being hunted off or picked off like cattle. And then conversations around our worthiness to life are being later discussed and debated by those who never saw our skin color as fully human. The reality that Black bodies are being gunned down reminds me that I am never meant to survive, let alone thrive. People being killed in an Orlando nightclub tell me that even places that we go for our refuge may never be safe. As a Black queer woman, I am constantly reminded how my multiple identities are seen as a threat. Envisioning what it means to thrive and not merely survive is imperative. I want my friends and my community to share ideas on what it would mean to be safe, happy, and successful. I don't want us buried long before our time. I want to figure out how we can fly. It's 2016. And for me, it's not surprising that there are people who are racist. It's not surprising that there is oppression, that Donald Trump has millions of supporters, that there is racial abuse, or that there are people who need to wake up to these injustices. When conversations around race and oppression are being had, I'm not learning anything new. I'm not being supported to grow. How many of you have gone to maybe like a racist justice training or like an LGBT sensitivity training? That's a thing. I've been there too. And unfortunately, in those spaces, I've learned to disengage. Because far too often, while people are unpacking their privilege, I'm simultaneously being assaulted. And the only thing I'm being reminded of is just how far we have to go for my experience to even be understood. I want to be clear. I am not speaking primarily to those who need to wake up. I'm speaking to my friends of color, my LGBTQ friends. Those of us who have bruises on our bodies and our souls and are constantly being asked to teach others how not to give us bruises and how to solve someone else's problems. The conversations that were being had are not centered around me. They're centered around those who are in power and those who hold privilege. Motivate them to change. Activate them to care. And inspire them to validate experiences that are different from them. This is not reflective of me or my friends. In this narrative, the only way in which I can engage is to be the one who wakes people up. To use my trauma for their enlightenment. And that is not my job. And that is not something that I am willing to do. It is as if the system made people fall asleep. And they are violent in their sleep. Kicking, punching, and calling us names. And we are being told that our only role is to wake them up and tell them exactly how they have been abusive. It is extremely painful. And it doesn't help. Envisioning what it means to thrive and not merely survive is imperative. If we want to realize the dream, our conversations cannot solely focus around bearing through the nightmare. I wonder what would happen if our communities and our conversations were centered around living joyous lives. Ones in which all of us, in all of our complexity, are celebrated and equal. I don't pretend to know what that looks like. I don't have all the answers. But maybe a collective conversation on how to get there would be the only way. Take a second and think to yourself, what do you and your communities like to talk about? What topics do you, your friends, and family like to engage in that make you feel whole? I asked my friends the same question, and they started rattling off answers, and I had to stop them and add a caveat. That it could not be centered around oppression. And we sat silent. We sat silent for 10 minutes. And we realized just how foreign this concept is. We processed, and they came up with a few answers. And here's what they said. More sustainable practices within my community. It's wellness, but maybe a redefinition, reclaiming of wellness. Wellness through joy, community accountability, access to whole foods and medicines. I want to talk more honestly and openly with the people that I love and the people I don't know. I want to feel safe to ask for help and be vulnerable. Hearing from our elders and taking care of each other with age. Sharing skills and education. Most of these are doable. Most of these are achievable. We can hold on to our community, our thoughts, our creativity when systems of oppression arise, when we are moving towards our right to thrive. There are numerous resources on the internet of how either not to be oppressive or how to be less oppressive. But there are absolutely no quick tips on how to survive oppression. We aren't even given access to learn, grow, or even have basic resources on what's happening to us. When I ask myself, what does it mean to thrive? I can't come up with a complete picture. It's a really hard question to ask when you feel like you're constantly in fight or flight, or you feel like you're in survival mode. I'm trying to figure out what it would even look like to walk down the street and feel safe, let alone thrive. So I thought smaller. I thought, what could I do? What do I actually have control over that I can work towards? I quit smoking because I wanted my power back instead of ingesting and swallowing the oppression that others gave me. I started to speak my truth without fear of holding back because of retaliation. I started to take care of my body in natural means and decided to support myself with community who support me. And these have all been amazing. And they have enhanced my life very much. And it's also not a complete picture. I realize that it's not my answer that matters. It's ours. Finding ways to have the conversation around what it means to thrive can only be beneficial. Because oppression can only exist as long as we are fully engaging in it. If we did not have all of our energy around oppression, maybe we could soar beyond what we see now. I invite you all to ask the question that you were never meant to whisper. For those of you who have power and privilege, have one conversation for every 5 around how you can limit or erase oppression. For those of you who know oppression more intimately, have one conversation for every 5 around how the future and your future will be beautiful and brilliant and thriving. As long as we continue to have these conversations, we will not only be picking the weeds and fending off the bugs, but planting the flowers and harvesting the bounty. Thank you.